The government hates you and believes themselves to be your parent. For real, the Attorney General lays it out. So we'll look at Varif and what he's up to today. 635 other IT companies, headhunting companies, talent companies, companies that are the middlemen and taking lots and lots of money from Canadian taxpayers to produce talent for the government. All of them just like Arrive Scam. Are these 635 individual different Arrive scams? $60 million a pop? Holy cow. $100 million a year to house asylum seekers? And have you seen the movie Hackers? We have a bridge update for you. Yesterday I said I'm real skeptical that they're able to use a computer virus to do any of this kind of stuff. I don't think that a ship. Me personally, I don't know because Hackers, the whole premise of Hackers is the theft was dependent on a computer virus capsizing a bunch of ships, right? So I'm watching Hackers. Somebody said, "Do you not remember Hackers, dude?" And I thought, holy cow, you're totally right. The whole plot was fulcrum depended on the money theft, everything depended on this virus capsizing those ships. So we're going to look at that. We're going to look at all the weird things that happened with the bridge disaster yesterday and tie it into Hackers. And holy cow, there's a lot to get to. Let's get to it. First, we have to start at break glass in case of emergency. Maybe that should be the title. Here is the Deputy Governor of the Bank of Canada saying, holy smokeronis, things are dire. Here we go.
I want to talk about Canada's long-standing poor record on productivity and convince you just how big of a problem it is. You know those signs that say, in an emergency, break the glass? Well, it's time to break the glass. Canada's labour productivity eked out a small gain at the end of last year, according to Stats Can. But that gain came after 6 straight quarters where productivity fell. Of course, the pandemic was a major disruptor for the economy. And during the pandemic, the resourcefulness and the ingenuity of Canadian businesses was put to full use. Companies adjusted their business models and their ways of working. And given how nimble our companies were, we thought productivity would improve coming out of the pandemic as firms found their footing and employees got trained back up. We did see that happen in the US, but it hasn't happened here in Canada. In fact, the level of productivity in Canada's business sector is more or less unchanged from where it was 7 years ago. Lots of people have been sounding the alarm, but it can be hard to feel a sense of urgency about an abstract concept like productivity. Most people, when they hear we need to improve productivity, think they're being told you have to work harder, work longer hours, take less time off, but that's not the case. That's not the message. Labour productivity measures how much an economy produces per hour of work.
So the economy needs to work longer hours. The economy needs to stay late, right? The economy is working this weekend.
I want to talk about Canada.
And if the economy is not producing any better results, why is that? Degrowth. That is the planned outcome from the economic policies at the top. This is not a surprise, although maybe the governor, the deputy governor of the Bank of Canada is surprised. But if you were paying attention, they want to reduce emissions. Any emissions are created by human activity. So they want to reduce, you are the carbon they want to reduce. They want to reduce everything we do. And so now people are realizing, holy cow, do you realize that we're not as productive as we once were? They want to drive it down. They want to drive it down. And that's on purpose. They want to make things more expensive. So if you have, if it costs X to produce 1,000 chickens, and to increase that, it will cost more, right? But to maintain that, it will cost more because everything's getting more expensive. So if you're Joe Farmer and the Walmart's not giving you more, so you reduce the amount of hens you're producing, but you're making the same amount, right? And now the cost of each hen to the farmer is more, and the cost of each hen to the retail person and the person buying it is more, and we've not produced any more. We have not increased our productivity. We've in fact decreased it. That's by design. That's my point. Okay. And so these guys are shit shocked. Well, read what they're trying to accomplish. Okay. There's a big problem with the productivity, and depends on your perspective, I guess, right? Justin Trudeau's celebrating. Here's Dan, and he's responding to this. Scott Moe says, the Bank of Canada says low economic productivity in Canada is now a national emergency. Turns out that the Trudeau NDP anti-energy policies designed to shut down our resource sector an equalization formula that penalizes the most productive provinces, and a carbon tax that drives up the cost of everything for everyone isn't great for productivity. Yeah, shocker, right? Like absolute shocker. And Dan McTeague says he's right. Scott Moe's right. And the warning signs were there. It took the plane of Trudeau's destructive ways to finally convince a good number of Canadians that they made a big mistake for the past 3 elections. I'm not convinced that we're convinced yet. I'm not, because we are on track to continue these policies with Pierre Poilievre. And really, the conversation is not being expanded to talk about that, even though I think a lot of people understand that. We're not talking about that as a nation, and that's concerning, right? Dairy cartels cost money too. Victor Fideli says, this guy's the Ontario MPP, and he's the Minister of Economic Development. And he's not sounding the alarm. The weird thing about all the politics in Canada, from like the school board politics where things are clearly not okay, the municipal politics where things are clearly not okay, they told people safe and effective. They shut down communities, community centers, community activities, all sorts of stuff under the guise of for your safety, comrade. And now they're pretending like, oh, look, it's dog walking day. Oh, look, here's the budget, right? Are you kidding me right now? We've just gone through 4 years of hell and you're not talking about any of it? I don't think so. And you want to house foreigners? He says, our government just released our 24 budget, Building a Better Ontario. We're keeping costs down for Ontario families while retaining a path to balance. So they're talking about maintaining their gas tax cuts, right? Putting money back into people's pockets by extending the gas tax cuts until December 31st, 2024, saving the average household $320 since 2022. It's better than that $320 being in the tax coffers, I guess, right? Building homes, they say keeping costs down and building at least 1.5 million homes by investing $1.8 billion to housing enabling infrastructure. Again, they're talking about building homes because that's been built up to be the solution for the cost of living and the cost of housing. But it is not a solution that will actually do anything to address the cost of those things. The only solution is to stop immigration and to be strong about that and to talk about that. And they're not. And that's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's so weak. Fighting crime, they say, working to keep roads safe and combat auto theft. I mean, it has gotten worse, so much worse under this government. Here's Bob Zimmer, and he says, what does $1 trillion look like? More importantly, what does the debt from Trudeau's wasteful spending look like in $100 bills? It will surprise you. And he just put pallets on and these aren't actual $100 bills. It's computer-generated $100 bills. So, I mean, it's interesting. It's an interesting visual. People are trying to use everything they can. This is throwing the shotgun strategy, throw everything you can at it, a nice wide spread, right? And whatever sticks, hopefully something sticks. So they're trying different tactics at different levels to put pressure, political pressure on Justin Trudeau. And that's interesting. Monetarily, there's different pressures as well as these degrowth policies are enacted and as provinces start revolting, the carbon tax revolt. And I think that the carbon tax revolt is going to heat up in the next week, by the way, as all of that kind of plays into the economic picture that Canadians are looking at. Justin Trudeau and his ministers are going more and more on the defensive, and they don't have anything to offer the citizens who are bankrupt in the face of spending and sending money to foreign wars, Ukraine and I don't know, Hamas, whatever terrorists anywhere they want, right? It's incredible, right? It's incredible, but people are getting pissed now and they don't have any explanation, and that's interesting. Argentina, the Argentinian president Milei plans to fire 70,000 government workers. How's that going to go? That should be fun. This has to happen in Canada. Starting with 338 people in the House of Commons. But we have a huge, massively bloated federal government, provincial government too, I think, across the country, multiple provincial governments. And so we need to fire a whole lot of people, but it doesn't play well, right? When you come in and say, listen, I know you all voted for me, but you're all fired. Get out. People don't like that. So it's not surprising, difficult, but it's going to need to be done, and it's going to need to be done in Canada too. Here's Franco Tetrazzino. He's a tax guy. He does director of taxpayers.com and taxpayer.com, and he says if even half of the MPs If even half of these MPs lose, moving back the election 1 week would cost taxpayers tens of millions of dollars. If politicians don't want to look shady, then they should stop doing shady stuff like this. So this is more wasteful wasteful shady stuff that they're doing, but they moved. National Post is reporting, here are the 80 MPs set to qualify for a pension with the help of a liberal rule change. And so they made the election 1 week later. And so there you go. You get your pension. Good luck. Good job, everybody. You get a gold-plated pension after 6 years of service. Whew. Wow, right? Let's move on and talk about carbon taxes. And I was already talking about carbon taxes, but the carbon taxes are implied in the economic woes of the country because that's the purpose of those policies. And John Barlow, who's an MP, he says the Keystra family from from this place up north, because there's still snow there, paid $180,000 in carbon taxes in 2023 to heat and cool their chicken barns. By 2030, they'll pay $480,000 when the carbon tax reaches $170 per ton. Next week, Canadians will see the carbon tax increase by 23%, making life even more unaffordable. It is anti-business. It is not something that you should do. The solution to making Canada a place where people can afford things is not giving people money that you've stolen from rich people. It's making everything so cheap that a rich person, the bar for being rich is so low that everybody's rich because they can afford everything, because everything's so cheap because the policies make it such, right? The policies are not putting unnecessary costs. Like, if they have to spend $500,000 on heating their chicken barns, how much do you think Walmart chicken is going to cost then? Right? It's not going to be $9.99. Here's this.
Hey, welcome to Carbon Tax Tuesday. I'm here at Mountain View Poultry in my riding with Ty and John Kielstra. They are a great operation here in Foothills. They've got almost 400,000 birds here at the poultry operation, and you guys are having to pay the carbon tax every single day because you have no alternative to ensure that you keep those birds warm. But what has been the impact on your business, and not only on your business here, but on the food supply?
It's been tremendously hard because we haven't seen our final bills because the cold snap was within the last few weeks, but we will see them. But it's huge, and what I take from this is we're attacking our food supply. We as farmers we already work on a small margin, 3-4% at the most, and it's just volume. That's where the numbers come from. And we all need food. That's the most important thing. I mean, you go without a meal for a day and tell me what's important to you. I mean, if the cost of our shoes are more expensive or a new jacket, well, we can defer that for a few weeks. But when it comes to food, you can't. And we have to pass it to the consumer. And the consumer already is struggling to pay for it.
Well, thanks very much, John. I appreciate that. And that's a really important message to get out of that. This isn't.
Why do you think that they would attack our food? Why would they do that? Why are they doing that across the West? Why are they pretending like the economic productivity being down, well, at the level of the federal government, isn't a cause of concern, isn't a reason to pause the carbon tax or remove it entirely? Why would they ignore these warnings from multiple people, business owners, governor, deputy governors of the Bank of Canada? Why would they just continue with this? Premiers of the province. Here's Scott Moe. He says, today I joined other premiers asking to appear before the House of Commons Finance Committee to discuss the upcoming April 1st Trudeau NDP carbon tax hike. So Scott Moe tried a couple of weeks ago, and I showed you that. And here's a new letter dated yesterday, March 26th. He's talking about this. He says the forthcoming 23% increase to the federal carbon tax on April 1st will increase the cost of almost everything, making life less affordable for Saskatchewan people, businesses, and communities. Our government's decision to stop collecting the federal carbon tax on natural gas and electricity used for home heating led to an immediate decrease in inflation, as confirmed by Statistics Canada. The last thing Canadians can afford right now is yet another increase in the federal carbon tax. I'm requesting the opportunity to appear virtually before the Finance Committee no later than March 28th to make the case as to why the federal government must cancel the planned increase in the federal carbon tax, or better yet, eliminate the federal carbon tax entirely on everything for everyone. With April 1st just 1 week away, I look forward to your prompt response. They're not going to respond. Oh man, I'd be shocked. I hope I get video. I hope I do, of Scott Moe addressing the Finance Committee and Chrystia Freeland sniffing in the microphone at him. But I'm not holding my breath. I'm really not. I don't think that they're going to listen. They don't want to listen. They're quite happy with the degrowth that they've achieved, and they don't want to lose ground because they don't work for us. They work for globalists who believe in climate change and believe that the only way to deal with climate change is to make everybody starving, poor, in the dark. That's it. Cold, freezing, poor, and in the dark. The food professor says several economists have recently endorsed a letter in support of the carbon tax. Make no mistake, this initiative is driven by Environment Canada, which aims to mobilize academics in countering criticism of the carbon tax. So here's the letter, and it's BS. It is BS of the highest order. It doesn't do anything to prove its claims. It just makes claims. Here's just a little bit of it, okay? Just a little tiny bit to have an idea of what they're trying to push on us and pull the wool over our eyes at the same time, right? As economists from across Canada, we're concerned about the significant threats from climate change. Right, sure you are. We encourage governments to use economically sensible policies to reduce emissions at a low cost. Nope. That's not a low cost. We're not at a low cost. We are destroying our food production, and we're destroying production across the country and making production of food difficult. That's stupid. That's playing with a loaded gun and being like, oh, I wonder what happens if I point it here. Dummies. Okay, blah, 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 blah. There's plenty of discussion about carbon pricing in Canada today. Healthy public debate is good, but it should be based on sound evidence and facts. Let's examine some of the claims made by critics of carbon pricing and compare them with what the evidence shows. There are no links to anything to back up any of the statements in this letter. Claim 1, carbon pricing won't reduce greenhouse gas emissions. What evidence shows? Not only does carbon pricing reduce emissions, but it does so at a lower cost than other approaches. And then they go through what they want to say. Since federal carbon pricing took effect in 2019, Canada's emissions have fallen by almost 8%. Now, I was under the impression that we don't count how much the carbon tax is lowering emissions. Here is a reminder from, when was this? March 20th. March 20th. Stephen Galbo admits government doesn't measure emissions reduction from carbon tax. Right? They don't measure this, so I don't know where they're getting their 8% reduction here, but they don't measure. So they can't possibly know it's 8%. They can't know it's any percent because they don't measure. They don't have any kind of measurement. Criticism 2, carbon pricing drives up the cost of living and is a major cost of inflation. What the evidence shows, Canadian carbon pricing has a negligible impact on overall inflation. Again, not true. Not true at all. The inflation was calculated. Hold on, Scott Moe. Here it is, Scott Moe. The inflation rate in Saskatchewan has dropped. This was from March 19th. So it's not even been 10 days, really, and they're just lying. Like, bold-faced lying to your face, hoping that you'll just read the Economist letter and not do like 10 seconds of research. The inflation rate in Saskatchewan has dropped to 1.7%, largely due to our government's decision to remove the carbon tax on home heating costs. Inflation in Saskatchewan is now more than a full point lower than the national rate of 2.8%. The federal government has set a goal of getting inflation down to 2%, so Saskatchewan has actually achieved Trudeau's goal by removing the carbon tax, while Trudeau sticks to his plan to add inflation by increasing the carbon tax again on April 1st. So the economists are making claims that are false. And they calculated the inflation rate. I think it added, what's his name? Tiff Macklem. Here's Tiff Macklem, right? And he says, Bank of Governor, this is global news. Bank of Governor, carbon tax boosts inflation rate by nearly 0.5 point. It's not inflationary, except that it is. So these people are lying to you. They're just bold-faced lying to you in order to lie to you. Eva Chippick weighs in on this. And so it's not just the economists that are lying. Mark Miller, who's an MP, is promoting this lie, this useless lie. He says an open letter from economists on Canadian carbon pricing. What the evidence shows, not only does carbon price reduce emissions, but it does so at a lower cost than other approaches. I mean, you can say anything if you don't have to actually back up your claims with evidence, right? That man could become a woman, right? You don't have to back up your claims with evidence. You can just say anything you want. All of a sudden, if you have to back it up, it becomes a whole different story. Eva Chippick says, why is the Minister of Immigration posting this strange open letter about carbon pricing? It reads more like a mission statement. It provides zero evidence. It does not provide any references to studies in support. The document was not prepared by the Government of Canada. Did Minister Miller even read what he posted? It doesn't matter. He's ideologically aligned with it. So, the paid-off economists and the political science majors or political science teachers in Canadian universities are all Marxist. All of them are Marxist, so they're politically aligned. Ontarian says, protest against carbon tax planned in Ottawa across Canada on April 1st. I've heard people are going to slow roll on highways. I've heard people are going to rally on overpass bridges. I've heard people are going to rally at city halls. And like there's a whole write-up here in True North talking about it. It says the carbon tax revolt continues with a wave of protests against Trudeau's government's controversial policy is set to unfold across Canada, including on Parliament Hill. The protest will happen April 1st, the same day the carbon tax is set to rise by 23% from $65 to $80 per ton. In Ottawa, local organizers have received a permit to hold a rally in front of Parliament. The permit authorizes, among other things, the use of 2 300-watt speakers and flags. The idea that you need a permit goes against the enshrined protection of the ability to peacefully protest. They're doing that to limit your freedoms. They could say, oh, well, we denied the permit, so you can protest, but you can't have your speakers. It says that I'm allowed to protest how I see fit peacefully. Done. See you later. So I don't know, man. The whole thing is sketchy at best. Across Canada, more disruptive highway protests are being organized on the outskirts of major cities and at interprovincial borders. So I hope that it goes well. It doesn't seem to have the attention that the trucker convoy had. There are a whole bunch of situations that I think are the government wants, and like, man, it is worth fighting for our freedom, even if the risk is no chocolate cereal. And so I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying, man, I wish we were smart. I wish we were smarter about how we were doing it. I wish we weren't seemingly walking into the government's, it's not even a trap necessarily. They're just going to choose some people, decide that they've broken the law in a way that, is kind of plausible, I guess, if you seal up all the evidence and have police officers who don't care about perjuring themselves, et cetera, et cetera. Like, you could frame people and offer examples for people to not do it again and not make any progress. And what I'm concerned about is we're going to go through all of this and we're going to have a protest and we're not going to make any progress. And it's going to seem like it's, at the end of Ninja Turtles, when they fight Shredder, and it's obvious that the Ninja Turtles need to fight together in order to defeat Shredder, but instead they take him on one at a time and Shredder easily dispatches all of them. It feels like we're doing that. At the end, they realize, and then they, whatever, but ultimately Splinter is the one who destroys Shredder and drops him into the garbage chute. Obviously, I'm talking of the 1989 live-action Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But I feel like we don't have a Splinter. We don't have the will to collectively fight together and or a strategy and or any real idea that we're the Ninja Turtles fighting anybody who needs to be thrown into a garbage heap or a garbage truck. I got there. Right? We're all kind of walking around going, that Shredder guy is looking dangerous. Or like we're walking around like I've compared before. We don't know the game we're playing. We don't understand the rules. When they score on us, we don't understand what's happened and we're losing badly. So we are in the game. We're definitely playing, but we're absolutely not on the board. And we don't realize we're in the game. So Shredder is going to continue dispatching us easily. CBC News says Drake Landing, a solar energy community south of Calgary, loses its sizzle as system starts to fail. So this is posted March 22nd. All of these climate initiatives that are bolstered by public money are doomed to fail. This technology wasn't maintained. They can't rebuild it. It's gone. That's it. Done. Drake Landing once was a leading solar heating community of its kind in North America, may have to rely on fossil fuels as the aging system because fossil fuels work and you don't want people to freeze in the dark if you can help it. They want to make it so we can't help it. The system is breaking down and may be too expensive or impossible to fix. You can't give us enough money to fix the thing. It can't be fixed. The 52 homeowners in the small, tight-knit community in south of Calgary at one point welcomed guests from around the world to show off their groundbreaking technology. Now, I've often said 52 people, 52 homeowners, that's not nearly enough for a scale test. If you have a community of 10,000 people working on your green energy plan, now maybe we'll come and check this out. Like, okay, great. How long has it been working? Has it been working through a couple of winters? No? Okay, well then that's not really legitimate. But if it's been working through a couple of winters, then maybe you scale up from 10,000 to 50,000, right? We don't even have that. We don't have 52. And they're saying, yeah, we're definitely going to phase out fossil fuels, oil and gas. Give me a break, right? The international visitors wanted to see firsthand how energy from the hot summer sun could be collected and stored and then released in a harsh Canadian winter to heat the community's houses. By all accounts, Drake Landing, established in 2006, exceeded the expectations and objectives set by the project's financial backer, which included the province and federal government. And then it goes through that. But the system has to be decommissioned, or could be, because the technology wasn't maintained and they can't rebuild it. So sorry about your luck. Aw, shucks, right? Wasteful spending. Let's talk about wasteful spending. Here's Andy Lee, and this is how we're funding these climate zealots to get the foothold that they've got. Andy Lee says they spent $0 on charitable work according to their financials. Weird charity, almost like it's really just an unregistered federal government lobby group on the taxpayer take. Andy Lee says, this is from February 5th of this year, how can a registered charity receiving federal funding from taxpayers, the Canadian Climate Institute, have no, as in zero, expenditures going towards charitable activities? I have questions, right? Yep. So there you go. Other is all of their spending. Ha! Can I get some money from petty cash? Oh, sure. Yeah, definitely. Hold on. It doesn't have anything to do with protesting climate things, does it? No? Okay, good. Here's Lion Advocacy, and he says the Canadian Climate Institute is a big promoter of the Prime Minister's carbon tax. It hails itself as a non-partisan, independently governed charity. The problem is that it receives more than 76% of its annual revenue from the federal government, likely approved by Guilbeault. So it's stacked with his buddies, right? They're hanging out on, I don't know, whatever green zealots hang out on. Dean says, is highlighting this further waste. Blacklock's reporter is reporting taxpayers' $43 million investment in money-losing Kenyan phone company has declined by 2/3, despite claim by the financial director of Canada's CEO, Laurie Kerr, that we're an investor with impact. If we had just put that money in Bitcoin, man, we'd have lots of money. Jeepers creepers. Dean says, where did our money go? Which liberals got the kickbacks from this Kenya phone scam? My goodness. Nigerian princes. I mean, we're probably getting our ducks cleaned in the House of Commons right now. Right now. Who made this appointment? Unbelievable stuff, right? And just wasteful spending. Kenyan phone companies? Like, why? It'll pay back $3 for every dollar now. Yeah, sure. Jack is responding to Carmaya. Carmaya says, Faye Johnson, a man who pretends to be a woman, has accused or accessed approximately $1.3 million in public money through nonprofit organizations. There's a lot of jargon on the websites, but how does that translate into actual value for taxpayers? So Johnston is walking up here, and I guess Carmaya asks questions, right? Saying
both received public money.
So there you go. And he doesn't respond because, why would he respond? But it's pretty wild stuff, man. It's pretty wild, the amount of money and the amount of waste that goes to climate zealots or sex zealots or anything like that. Very, very concerning indeed. Okay, so yesterday, after watching my show, or after somebody watched my show, and I was talking about how skeptical I was about the whole ships being able to be taken over by a third party. Somebody said, number one, during the Suez Canal, I think it's the Suez Canal, or the Panama Canal. I can't remember which one. I think it was Suez, but I could be wrong. They had a whole bunch of different boats being maneuvered by third party people from different locations. And they said that technology definitely exists. So they can definitely maneuver the boats from third party locations depending on the boat. But this was a container ship, which is similar to the container ships that were used in the Suez Canal. So can a cyber attack accomplish this? Maneuvering, probably, but I thought there would be too much separation between the bridge and the mechanical to have the power outages be caused by a cyber attack. But again, I could be wrong. Like, I really could be wrong. And like, I'm not a mariner. I'm not a sailing guy. I don't know anything about ships other than Deadliest Catch, okay? And hackers. So in addition to the Suez Canal, these ships were being maneuvered third party independently from a different place. Somebody just said, do you remember hackers? It all had to do with capsizing the ships. Hack the Gibson, buddy. And I was like, oh man. So I had to go through hackers and find the part that explains the plot that includes the ships. And it's all blamed on innocent hackers. Man, here we go.
This incident just proves, without a doubt, that we need increased funding to stop.
Hold on, I'm getting
Hola, boys and girls.
He's there making the case that they need increased funding to shut down the internet or shut down hackers like these, right? Like the whole hackers now is a very different ride than it was back then. Anyway, here's serial killer.
It is I, the serial killer, making my first coast-to-coast, worldwide, global television appearance. Yes, that's right. I'm here to tell you about this heinous scheme hatched from within Ellingson Mineral. But for what, you ask? World domination? Nay. Something far more attacking. A virus called Da Vinci that when launched would cause Ellingson Mineral tankers to capsize was to be blamed on innocent hackers. But this virus was really the smokescreen, right? What could be so vitally important to protect that someone would create such a nasty, antisocial, very uncool virus program? But why? Could it be to cover the tracks of this worm program? A worm that was to steal 25 million bucks. The password to this hungry little sucker belongs to Margot Holmes, head of public relations for Ellingson Mineral, and Eugene Belford, computer security officer.
Son of a
bitch! Oh, what's this? Is this the unnamed account in the Bahamas where the money?
It just seems all too convenient, right? So, and the other connection is, of course, the Obama movie "Leave the World Behind," and the whole movie gets kicked off with a tanker being cyber attacked and crashing onto a beach, right? The container ship crashing onto a beach due to a cyber attack. So people are drawing all of those conclusions, and I thought that's weird. One of the things that I found yesterday, here's Joe Rambo, and he's sharing this 90 minutes of Baltimore Fire Department radio traffic from this morning's bridge collapse. It's really interesting. One, there was a construction crew on the bridge, so the bridge was down to 2 lanes only, one lane going either direction. The Mayday got out before they hit the bridge, and so they were able to stop traffic going onto the bridge from a certain point in time, but it was very, very clumsy. But it's interesting, like 90 minutes, wild stuff, absolutely wild stuff. Starting at, I think it's like 1:30, like when the bridge was actually hit to, and it's all the coordination, et cetera, et cetera. Here is another interesting thing. The Baltimore mayor is asking people to stop showing the bridge collapse video. Why do you want people to not show the bridge collapse video? I mean, it looks super, super, if you watch it, it looks very intentional. So maybe that's why. Left Coast Vagrant says, let this be a reminder that leftist authoritarians do not like dissemination of information. People have the right to information and breaking news on emergencies, elections, mRNA jabs, and you cannot vote for a Democrat, authoritarian, leftist, even the rhinos. So basically, if you want censorship, vote for those guys because they definitely want to censor everything. Here is Inside Paper, and they're reporting no indication of terrorism in Baltimore bridge collapse. Police chief says. The police say nothing to see here. Everything's normal. And yesterday, after the initial stuff, I thought, yeah, probably an accident. It looks like it's an accident. But after yesterday and hackers, who knows? Here's the FBI. And the FBI says it's found no evidence of terrorism linked to the Baltimore bridge collapse. Man, good thing that investigation wrapped right up, eh? Whew. Got things to do in the home office in the FBI. Jordan says the FBI agent who is discounting terrorism at the Baltimore bridge, very quickly I might add, was named special agent in charge of Baltimore field office yesterday. So, first day on the job. There you go, buddy. Is it your 9/11 or was it just an awful coincidence, right? Oh man, do you believe in those still? Ian says, let's talk about punishment, crime and punishment, and being in Canada and having to deal with the federal government using institutions and law apparatus against its citizens. What's the latest version of this, you ask? Good question. The RCMP is federal, says Ian. Why is the mandatory breathalyzer only being implemented in Saskatchewan? It wouldn't have anything to do with the carbon tax remittance from Saskatchewan drying up, would it? And then somebody said, we've had it for a while in Alberta too. And Ian says, the feds aren't big fans of Alberta either. There has to be a connection. And Ian continues, he says, I wasn't aware that Alberta had this already. You may have noticed that Ottawa isn't a big fan of Alberta either. So I maintain that there's a linkage that isn't appropriate. I don't disagree. I think that there could be a uncomfortable period of questioning that would result, I think, if you pursued that line of questioning. And I don't think the government has a justification for that. Like, you're guilty of maybe drinking and driving because people drink and drive sometimes and you're in a car. It's just the justification of it is terrible, right? It's terrible. Will it keep people safe? I don't think so. I think that there are things that are happening that are making people more unsafe that they could focus on. Caroline Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful